Good evening and thank you for joining us. City officials have confirmed they're considering the possibility of scaling back portions of the event center project.
The criteria for the Building Canada program, a fund the city wants to tap into for the proposed facility, has been announced. And in order to qualify, projects must have a price tag of under $100 million. Dennis Ward has more on how the city might lower the cost of the development.
The city now knows the Event Center project is a fit for the $14 billion Building Canada Fund, but to qualify for the federal and provincial funding, the $106 million budget will need to be trimmed. General Manager of Facilities Michael Smith says one element the city is rethinking is the $6 million 200-stall parking structure.
The parkade is still something that we're out there looking at, that, do we really need this? So the parking and traffic study is a part of the phase 3. So at this point in time, we're of the belief that that the parking structure is not required, which puts us into that $100 million category.
Smith says details are still being fleshed out, but the city is of the opinion there is enough parking in the area without the parkade. But the facility itself won't be downgraded in any way to meet the Building Canada financial criteria. The city is still working on a 5,700-seat, 50,000 square foot arena and convention center, and the new pedestrian bridge from the facility over Water Street to Prince Arthur's Landing is still a critical component.
We're very confident that all of the things that are, within that building square footage that was envisioned in phase 2, the design may look a little bit different and it's an evolving process, but yeah, we're expecting that all of those things we said in that phase 2 feasibility will be included in the footprint.
Phase 3 studies will wrap up at the end of July. An application to the Building Canada Fund is expected to be submitted by the end of September. Smith says if everything falls into place, construction would begin in the spring of 2015. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie has some advice for Thunder Bay City Council on moving ahead with the event center. Debbie Amoroso says despite controversy at the time in the Sault, building a new arena was the right thing to do. The Sault Ste. Marie mayor was in the city for the Northern Ontario Mayor's meeting. The 4,900-seat Esser Centre opened in September 2006 and replaced the 50-year-old Memorial Gardens. People in the community were concerned about the impact the $40 million project would have on their taxes. But Amoroso says she doesn't hear people today saying it was a bad decision.
Our experience has been that biting the bullet and not investing in a 50-year-old structure was the right thing to do. It's served our community well, and it's helped with our marketing strategies for our tourism, events, conferences, concerts, those kinds of things. We've had some exciting events hosted in Sault Ste. Marie. It's a great home for our OHL team.
Amoroso feels investing millions of dollars into a 50-year-old building still leaves you with a 50-year-old building at the end of the day.
Mayors from around Northern Ontario met with provincial officials and Aboriginal leaders in Thunder Bay this morning. They're here to discuss Ontario's Northern Growth Plan. The agenda was highlighted by conversations regarding a multimodal transportation strategy and concerns about the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation.
Meetings I have seen.
Northern Ontario's large urban mayors have some specific ideas when it comes to the implementation of the province's Northern Growth Plan. In what several municipal leaders referred to as a productive meeting with provincial ministries, the group discussed the importance of connecting First Nations communities with urban centres, not just for mining, says Thunder Bay Mayor Keith Hobbs, but to ease the burden on regional hospitals as well.
If we get that transportation system in there, we'll be able to get proper diets for First Nation people living up in the north, less diabetes, less visits to Thunder Bay Regional Hospital, less code gridlock, less expense to the province.
The mayors also have major concerns about the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation and the reassessment process that's cost several communities millions in lost revenue.
Our tax bases are being eroded by big companies that use our roads, that pound our roads into oblivion, and they don't want to pay their fair share of taxes. So it's an issue that we're going to keep on, and it's affecting all the leaders that were here today.
The 6 mayors in attendance each praised the province for its willingness to move forward regarding issues relating to the Northern Ontario Growth Plan. Sault Ste. Marie's Debbie Amoroso.
We're actually starting to see some things start to fall in place, and I think that at our next meeting we may even be in a position to start making some decisions about, where do we need to focus? Where do we need to focus some financial support and some planning to move issues forward?
The Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation announced more than $1.1 million in private sector investments this afternoon. The money has been divvied up between 4 Thunder Bay companies. Sensia Canada will receive $500,000 to develop mobile computer software. The $100,000 given to XLV Diagnostics will be used to develop a digital mammography prototype, and nearly $530,000 has been allocated to KMB Forestry Consultants to upgrade its aerial photography service and build a new airplane hangar.
With the economic crisis in 08-09 and the collapse of the forestry sector in northwestern Ontario, we needed to develop a new vision. And so we decided to use our aerial photography program, build it stronger, and expand our client base from just the forestry sector and our geographic reach from northwestern Ontario to beyond.
19 new jobs will be created in Thunder Bay as a result of the grants from the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund.
The municipality of Oliver Papoonge is looking to take over control of the Founders Museum and pay off its many creditors. The rustic tourist attraction on Highway 61 is more than $45,000 in debt, and its future was in jeopardy. The Founders Volunteer Board of Directors has now agreed to dissolve the corporation, and Grant Thornton has been hired to seek out all its outstanding creditors by May 5th. Oliver Papoonge Mayor Lucy Klooster, who says her council has agreed to pay off those debts and then assume ownership of the museum. She says the Pioneer Village and its contents are worth far more than $45,000, both in real and sentimental value.
I believe that all of council wants to see it stay open as a museum. We're not interested in, tearing down the buildings and selling the artifacts. That would be the last thing from our minds, and we sure would like to see it stay open because there's a lot of history here. That would be it would just be such a shame to see it disappear.
Klooster, who says they hope to have all the paperwork completed by July 1st and then reopen the Founders Museum soon after that. There's also a plan to amalgamate the facility with the Papoonge Museum on Roslyn Road and combine the artifacts at the Highway 61 location.
Thunder Bay Police continue to investigate a scary head-on crash last night between a city police cruiser and a car carrying a mother and her 2 small children. The accident happened at around 7:30 at the corner of Arthur and Franklin Streets. Both vehicles were heavily damaged and a traffic light pole was knocked down onto the street. The police cruiser went through the fence in front of Pope John Paul II School. A female officer, along with the mother and the children in the other car, were sent to hospital with minor injuries and were released soon afterwards. Traffic was closed on the section of Arthur for several hours while police investigated. More details are expected next week. It's the second collision involving a city police cruiser in the past month. The other incident on March 21st led to a traffic violation against the officer behind the wheel.
Residents of a Walkover Street apartment building had to evacuate following a fire that began on the 3rd floor of the building this morning. Fire crews responded to a call around 9 a.m. and were able to quickly get the flames under control. The fire is believed to have started from a pot on the stove. Occupants of the unit suffered minor smoke-related injuries. Platoon Chief Brant Kiesig says the unit sustained a ton of damage.
Report of smoke coming from the 3rd floor of this apartment building, and when crews arrived they found a kitchen fire. They knocked it down fairly quickly, and they managed to keep the fire contained to the kitchen area of the one apartment.
Kiesig says 6 trucks attended the scene because the reports coming in described a large amount of smoke, and they wanted to be prepared to deal with a more serious blaze.
Well, a brief evacuation at a city high school this afternoon. Students and staff at Hammarskjöld High were forced to flee from the building around 1:30 this afternoon after a strong chemical odor was detected. Officials from Thunder Bay Fire Rescue, Union Gas, and the city all responded to the emergency. Principal Jenny Lamb says in her 13 years at the school, she's never experienced anything like this.
They're not having any luck yet determining the source of the smell. We've got Union Gas here looking to see if they can determine the source of the smell, and I believe I just heard from my vice principal that we have an all clear about natural gas smell. So we've yet to determine an all clear and to identify what is the source of the smell.
Students and staff were allowed back inside after about an hour after emergency personnel were unable to determine the source of the odor. The investigation continues.
Well, there's pain at the pumps for Thunder Bay motorists. Prices have climbed above $1.46 per liter at many local gas stations. According to the website gasbuddy.com, that's roughly 16 cents per liter higher than the Ontario average and about 13 cents higher than the average cost across the country. $1.46 is the highest price we've seen here in Thunder Bay since the summer of 2008, when the price at the pump reached $1.48. THP variety on the Fort William First Nation continues to boast the area's lowest gas prices at just over $1.14 per liter. Lineups at the locations this afternoon spilled out onto the road.
The head of Noront Resources says he'd be happy to hear dollars allocated to Ring of Fire infrastructure any day, any way. Alan Coots was reacting to a document that leaked earlier this month outlining the province's pre-budget announcements. The documents include an event slated for April 17th to announce a commitment to road infrastructure. Noront's CEO was in Thunder Bay last evening for a panel on the Ring of Fire. Coots says funding would be timely and feels both levels of government need to ante up to build the infrastructure to make great things happen.
What we've done is we've informed Minister Gravel's office and also Minister Rickford's office federally about the design of our road and at this point our detailed engineering and the costing that we think is required in order to build the road that we are the proponent of. It's not necessarily guaranteed that this will be the road that will be first built. We're hoping it is.
Coots says at this time, Noront is the only company going through the permitting process for a project in the Ring of Fire. In its feasibility plan, Noront has allocated $10 million a year over 11 years to pay to use the infrastructure. Coots believes the road network could be constructed in a period of 2 years and happen at the same time as the construction of Noront's proposed mine, a mine the company hopes to get to work on this winter.
New research into biomass energy production at Confederation College received a boost today thanks to the TD Bank. It came in the form of a $100,000 donation. And it's research that, if successful, could have major implications for northwestern Ontario. Phil Darlington reports.
Diesel and other fossil fuels are currently being used to produce energy in communities across the region, but there are a number of issues with those forms of production, the largest being the cost. President Jim Matter says the research being conducted out of Confederation College aims to determine if biomass could be an effective replacement.
What's locally available? Does it have the heat source itself? Would there be challenges in terms of using that actual heat source? And the real opportunity here is to reduce the amount of diesel that's being used in those communities.
According to TD officials and the college, the donation was made because the bank supports positive environmental initiatives and because the success of biomass could greatly reduce energy costs.
Given the biomass reduces greenhouse gas as it replaces the use of diesel overall, it was of interest to TD Bank in order to support the project.
Heating with wood pellets is 50% of the cost heating with fuel oil. And that number seems to hold true with minor variations. So if you're heating with wood chips from your local supplier, those costs should even be less than that.
In addition to the cost savings, biomass could be produced locally with organic materials, which would reduce the risk of spills from transporting fuels and also divert waste from landfills.
It helps communities become more sustainable, because if you're harvesting most of your energy from sources that are local, whether it's a solar or wind setup or a run-of-river dam or a biomass facility, you are not importing all these materials.
The boiler at the college is expected to be completed within a month, and the college hopes to begin testing by the fall, with the first phase results arriving within a year. Phil Darlington, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police have made an arrest in connection with a pair of recent robberies. Last Thursday, staff were threatened with a syringe in robberies at a Franklin Street convenience store and a Cumberland Street laundromat. This past Wednesday, police took a suspect into custody after he was spotted out past a court-ordered curfew. Subsequent investigation resulted in several charges being laid, including 2 counts of robbery and 3 counts of breach of probation. The 29-year-old suspect has been remanded to the district jail.
Walking from City Hall to the former Hells Angels clubhouse may seem like a strange way to kick off the first annual Crime Awareness Walk, but with the recent transformation of the infamous building, it made for a fitting place to end the walk. Around 50 people rallied together in front of City Hall to hear speeches from people involved with the Thunder Bay and Area Victim Services. After that, the group walked down May Street all the way to the former clubhouse, which is now the headquarters for Evergreen, a united neighborhood. Evergreen organizer Linda Bruin says no matter what age you are, the community is a better place if you have each other's back.
The residential area crime is actually decreasing, so we still have a long way to go, but more neighbors are connected and knowing each other, so I think that's really important to reducing crime.
Crime prevention is a community effort. Obviously, we rely on the police, but unless we have the community involved, I think it's going to be a hopeless task. But I'm heartened by growing signs that the community is being involved, as we see from the people here.
Officials with Thunder Bay and Area Victim Services say their agency and volunteers helped over 400 victims of crime last year.
At least we're finally seeing some decent walking temperatures at this time of year.